Hi, Mark here. Today I'm going to be making some ground cherry jam. Got the original recipe out of Euell Gibbons' book, Stalking the Wild Asparagus, Field Guide Edition. Some of you might remember Euell Gibbons. And it's a pretty interesting recipe. I've made this before and it's really tasty. Of course, first we have to do is gather up our ground cherries. You see me doing that here. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Don't want to watch too much of that. So ground cherries are related to the nightshade family. They're also called bladder cherry. That sounds disgusting. Husk tomato, strawberry tomato, and dwarf Cape gooseberry. You have several of these little boxes full already. We're just picking some more to make sure I got enough. We'll get them in the house here pretty quickly. They're pretty tasty. I like them. They'll drop off the vine or the bush and they'll ripen up by themselves. I like them when they're more on the yellow side than on the green side. Tastes a lot sweeter. Well, first thing we have to do is husk them. It takes a little while to do that. I've got about 4 cups there already husked. The papery husks come off pretty easy. These are some that I picked up several days ago, and they've dried out nicely. They've ripened up a little bit more. The original recipe calls for only a quart or 4 cups, but we're going to do a little bit more than that. When I get done here, I'm going to end up with probably about 7 cups of husked ground cherries. The big measuring cup there holds 4 cups, and I got that filled right up to the top, so it's probably closer to 5. And then another 2 in the smaller cup. There we go. Pack them down a little bit. We're going to rinse these off. They're pretty clean. They come up pretty clean. I've got some, if you noticed in the pictures, I had some white material underneath the bushes to catch them. Let's give them a little rinse. And I'm not really that dark. There's nothing wrong with my hands. It's the black sink and the light reflecting off of it. Makes it look like I had we're cleaning out the wood stove or something. I'll rinse these babies off. Even though I got this original recipe out of Euell Gibbons' book, I'm going to partly follow that and partly follow the recipes given on the Sure Jell Fruit Pectin thing. Okay, I'm going to, rather than crush them with a fork, which is you can do, I'm going to put them in here and I'm just going to pulse them a little bit. This food processor. I don't want them pureed or smashed up too bad. We just want to pulse them, get them cut so that the sugar and pectin can get at them. And I'm going to do this in about 3 batches here. Do a little batch at a time. It's a little bit easier to control for me. Get that in the pot there, using a porcelain lined. There we go. That's the 3rd batch. Usually I keep my stuff cleaned up as I go along if I don't have anything that I have to stand there and watch. So there they are. They're all cut up a little bit and ready to go. We need this juice of 2 lemons, and right about now I'm going to run out of space on my card, so I'll skip over. I already had those cut and juiced and use the last of it. Okay, we've got the juice from our 2 lemons. Now what we're going to need is the zest. The zest is the very outside of the rind on the lemon, and we don't want to get any of the white inside that rind there. We want just pretty much just the yellow part right on the outside. And to do this job, I like using these microplaners. They work really well. They're really good and sharp. It's going to do a good job. It gets it shaved off there in nice small pieces, and that's going to blend right into our jam here once we get going. So be careful you don't rub that across your skin. It'll do a little bit of a job on you. So there we go. I'll have that done in a second or two. And then we'll mix it in good. It's all going to get mixed in eventually, but I like to keep things mixed in so it don't clump together. Okay, next step calls for a half a cup of water. I'm using RO water here. That's why it's coming out of a jug instead of the faucet. And we'll just put that in there with our berries, ground cherries. And next step, get our sugar ready. We're not going to put that in yet, but we're going to get that ready and measured out. And in this case, I'm going to use 4 cups of sugar. That's what the original recipe calls for. Sure Jell would probably have me using more, but since they don't have a recipe for ground cherry jam, the nice thing about Sure Jell, why I like using what I'm actually using here is the Sure Jell no sugar or light sugar Fruit Pectin. I've noticed that usually it's about 1.5 to 2 cups less sugar than fruit. So say if you had 6 cups of fruit, you'd only need about 4 cups of sugar. Or on a smaller batch, it might be 1.5 cups less sugar than fruit. Whereas the regular pectin, normally what they want is almost 2 cups more. Anyway, we've got that. Now here I am measuring out another 1/4 cup of sugar. We're going to mix the pectin in with that. The main reason we do this is the pectin is going to go into the jam before all the rest of the sugar. But the sugar here will help keep the pectin separated. And it gives it a little bit, there we go, dump that in there, get it all in. Now we're going to stir that up good with the sugar. We're going to mix that in there. And then when we pour that into our jam, it's not going to clump up. If we just dump the pectin by itself in there without having it mixed with the sugar, more than likely it would want to clump and not spread out well in the jam. There we go. Put the cover back on the sugar canister, keep any moisture out of there. That's white sugar, cane sugar. Don't like using beet sugar, it's probably GMO. There's my Sure Jell that I'm using. And what I use almost in all my jams. Okay, we get some water boiling and we're going to put our lids in there. Don't really have to boil our rings, but the lids, we want these sterilized, and I believe more so than that is get those rubbers in there warmed up and softened up. I'm going to heat that, we'll get them boiling, then we're just going to set that to the side. Don't have to keep them boiling. Basically get your water boiling, put them in there, and then set them aside. Let them sit in there until we're ready to put them on the jars. Here's my ground cherries all crushed and ready to go. Putting in the pectin sugar mixture here. Keeping it stirred in. Don't want any clumping. I don't think it will, but I'm going to keep it stirred as we go along. They're all in there. Put the heat on. Then we're going to bring this to a boil here, and fast forward this a little bit. Okay, got her up to the boil, the rolling boil. I keep it stirred. I don't want it to burn. I've had jam burn on me before. Keep it stirred. We're going to pour our sugar in. That's the 4 cups that we had pre-measured, and get it all stirred up. This should come to a boil pretty quick, and once it gets boiling, we're going to boil it for at least 1 minute and no longer than 2. I go a little bit over a minute usually on this. There we go. It's boiling. Just can't quite see it too good here where I speeded it up. I kept it stirred down. And after the minute or so is up, we'll turn the heat off. Now before this we had our jars all washed, rinsed out good, and had them tipped upside down so that they would drain out good. Don't want any excess water in them. They don't have to be sterilized. Your jars for jams don't have to be sterilized. This jam is going to be hot enough to do any sterilizing once we get going here. Here I am still stirring on the stuff. Okay, alright, here we go. Okay, got some jars filled. We'll fill a few more here. Keep my fruit stirred up good so that it doesn't separate out. Sometimes the juicy part wants to go to the bottom and the fruit part wants to float up on top. I'm using the 8-ounce or 1 cup jars here. I like these little jars. Just myself here that eats the jam. So one of these jars will last me a while. And then I can go on to a different flavor. If you had a bigger family, you might want to put them in pint jars. So get the jars filled up. Take a couple of lids out, set them on paper towels, let the excess water off of them. We'll get our little cloth here and we're going to clean off the rims of the jars. We don't want any jam left on the rim there. Get that off of there, otherwise we won't get a good seal. And might even get moldy up in there if it did get a seal. So we'll clean that off good. And then we're going to put our hot lids on top. And then we'll get some rings. The rings don't have to be sterilized or boiled. Just wash them off and just put them right on. This stuff is pretty hot. So we'll get our rings on there. And we're going to tighten it down and make sure we get a good seal there with the lid. And just want to hand tighten them. You don't have to force them. They'll suck down once that starts cooling off. Kind of forms a vacuum in there as the air cools in that little headspace. Put a headspace about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. It's pretty good. I'll finish filling our jars up here. Looks like I'm going to get 8 of them. 8 cups. Let's see. Dump that out. A little bit low there. So what we'll do is even it out a little bit. Whoops. Scoop ain't going to fit. We'll just pour some in there. Okay, finish putting the lids on there. And our rings. And there we have it. Finished jam. We just have to wait now. Let them set. Start cooling off. Listen for that nice popping sound as the lid goes. Looks from the pot, it looks like the jam is set up pretty good, but the real test is going to be tomorrow morning at breakfast. Get a good old English muffin out. English muffins and jam go together really well, I think. Got those little crevices and holes in them to fill out. Here we are. That's some good jam.